The Tuesday, October 21st meeting of the Westford School Committee, and we will stand and say our Pledge of Allegiance. Please join us if you can.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Moving on, we'll start with our consent agenda. I know we're going to looking at taking a vote, but I believe there may be one or two questions in advance of that, so.
Yeah, just I had a quick question, Dr. Chu, if with the September budget transfer, I can see from the accounts amounts over to the operations and maintenance line was 130,000. Do you have any summary on that amount of money and what it went to, or?
You know, I don't at this moment in time. I'd
Okay.
have to look at it specifically. I know Jenny Lynn would be able to
Yeah.
specifically
I know
give us that
Jenny's not
information,
in.
but she
Yep.
isn't able to join us right now.
Okay.
Let me look and see. Going into the drive.
The club question could probably be to
Yeah.
Courtney.
Yeah. While you're looking for at that,
Yeah.
Chris, Jess also, I think, had a question on the
Yeah.
new student clubs.
Student clubs, yeah. Well, I had two questions. So is this the full list of clubs? Like, are there going to be more clubs in the future? Is there a deadline at which they have to?
So we have a pretty extensive list of all clubs, and it's listed in our addendum to the WEA Unit A and Unit B contract. That's online. I can send you a copy of it later. It basically talks about each of the categories of stipends that we have, and then some of the subcategories that we have for each of those clubs. So it's a pretty extensive list that's broken into elementary, middle, and high school. Each year, staff are welcome to apply for new clubs, whether it's coming from student interest or most of the time at the elementary level, it's a staff member that's saying, oh, I'm willing to offer a club in such a category. They fill out a form, and this is the final step of bringing it to the school committee. We've already discussed it with the building administration as a leadership team and during WEA consult. So those are just the new clubs that would fall under our piloting category of Tier 1 for this school year.
Yep, and thank you. That's helpful information.
Okay.
Sorry, I asked that wrong. What I meant was, is this the list of new clubs? Are there going to be new clubs proposed throughout the year, or is there a certain deadline at which they have to be proposed?
Most likely there won't be new clubs through the year. They could
Oh, okay. Could
come
be.
about, especially at the high school, because students have so many different interests, and at that time they might go and bring it to the dean's attention. Betsy Murphy is the one who oversees the clubs at this time.
In the past, there was sort of an expectation that there was like a hard date, and then one of the things we talked about was that students come up with these ideas throughout the year, so we didn't want to penalize them for not having, but then that's why the different language in the contract has allowed us to pilot different things first.
Gotcha. Okay, I guess the question I'm driving toward is, are these proposed clubs working within our budget? And, if we were to say yes, but no more, that would be something to know, so that future clubs this year maybe could not get approved, so. I just wanna
Well,
understand
it is a little bit of a challenge. We have been operating within the budget at the high school, which is our largest clubs offering. And when I say clubs, I'm not talking just about the stipends, because the stipends sometimes are over budget, but the clubs themselves, the amount of fees that we take in for the student interests covering the student after-school clubs are covered. I think there's still some work to be done to see if we have a different tiered level of student fees that should be recommended. But that's probably a
Yeah, I can,
conversation.
well, and I can add there that the finance subcommittee, our last meeting and our next meeting is looking at least FY25 data of stipends, clubs, how we split that with the general fund. So it's an ongoing investigation, I would say, with Jenny and Dr. Chu.
I was also curious about the Student Senate being a new club, because I know that's a group that's been around for about 2 or 3 years at least. Do you know what the story is with that, or?
It didn't go through the approval process.
I see.
And so we're bringing it to the
So
approval
it's because,
process now. Yeah.
okay, that makes sense.
And can I just clarify, when you say we go over budget on the stipends? Okay, so we've approved a budget for clubs for the year, and with these new clubs and the other ones currently running and approved, numbers-wise, we're over.
There are, I don't have that information with me
yeah.
right now. I mean, certainly
Okay.
we can look into that, but what I was alluding to is that there are many different categories of stipends.
Okay,
And so when we're talking about the clubs such as these that are listed here,
yeah,
they are covered by the student fees at the high school.
gotcha, okay,
Elementary, we don't collect
okay,
a fee, so that we have to identify a different funding source in that
Okay.
realm. But there are other stipend positions that,
gotcha,
yeah.
okay, okay.
Do,
Any luck?
do we know if Jenny is logged in as an attendee? Okay, because normally if she's not here, she's able to do that. So I apologize, I don't have the specific information for
Maybe
it.
just, for the next meeting, just,
A follow-up or
I mean,
anything?
kind of scanning through, I can see some of the maintenance budgets for
Yeah.
the various buildings and stuff. I mean, nothing we probably don't already know about
Yeah, yeah,
relative to the,
Right.
the constant upkeep
Yeah.
for the buildings, so.
With that, do we feel we're
To-
ready to make a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved?
Second.
Awesome. And all in favor? Okay. Okay, and now we'll move on for public comment. If there's anybody in the room or online who would like nothing, okay. We'll move on. Informational updates. And we start with our student reps.
So this week is Spirit Week,
Oh.
and at the end of the week on Friday we have our pep rally, which is organized by STUCO, the student council, and on Saturday we have homecoming, which is also organized by STUCO, and for the first time this year it's all 4 grades instead of just upperclassmen.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Fantastic. Thanks, Anya. And next we move on to our superintendent and assistant superintendent.
Good start.
Sure. We don't always talk about professional development that's offered to our administrators, but this past Friday, during one of our full leadership teams meetings, we met with Kat Lyons from Lyons Law
Law group.
and she is our new attorney representing our school law. And it was a great opportunity for us to hear some of the latest trends that are happening that impact the work that we do each day. It was also important to make sure that we are calibrating as a leadership group in terms of our understanding around discipline, bullying, conducting investigations, curriculum products, and that type of thing. So it was a great interactive, I would say, about 90-minute session between our 40 administrators and Kat Lyons. It was great.
We had our school committee tours since our last meeting. We saw a lot of classes, a lot of students, and a lot of roof,
Oh, we did.
right? So the roof
Some of
was a lot
us
of
a little
fun.
more than others.
Some of us saw a little bit more than others. We had so much fun with the roof that I've scheduled my next update to be filmed
You're
on
gonna
the
do it.
roof,
Oh,
right?
awesome.
So Nick is going to join Jeff Goodwin
New
and I.
stage production, superintendent on the roof.
Superintendent on the roof, right? So I think that'll be fun. This Thursday, I have the monthly Valley Board meeting, just letting people know about that. We have a new director of technology, Nathan Gomet, who has just started, and I look forward to actually inviting him to one of our meetings to kind of talk about his philosophy and kind of bringing him in. He's, overseeing both the town and the schools together, and I thought that'd be a great thing for him to come to one of our future meetings. But we welcome him and look forward to his collaboration. In the last meeting, I told you that I was going to be going on a NEASC visit, so I was able to spend 2 days in another community. It's one of those things where, what's the adage, like when you put your troubles in a bag and everyone puts it in, like you want to get your own back, that kind of thing. So it was one of those things where it was wonderful to go and support another community and to look to see what challenges that they have. So many communities have challenges with the budget that I feel like it was interesting to see how another district responded to some of those challenges. It did make me walk away feeling more confident with the choices that I think we've been making and the way in which we've been communicating. But I think it's just always helpful to see how other districts are interacting and sort of collaborating to try to respond to different scenarios. Maybe Valerie or others might mention this, but we have not only the special town meeting coming up, but we also have a tri-board meeting the next night. So it's going to be a twofer in 1 week.
Yeah.
Which will be exciting for folks.
Keep us on our
Right?
toes.
Yeah. And then the last thing I was just going to talk about was after our last meeting, I did sign on that fiscal crisis letter. They are hoping to send that to the governor this Friday, I believe. So if you wanted to sign on as individuals or collectively as a group, I think they're looking for, as many signatures as possible. And I know our union leadership has signed on, I've signed on, and some of our administrators have signed on.
Super. Thank you. And school committee updates. Anybody down that end?
Yeah. So Lori and I, as part of the Student Advisory Subcommittee, we were able to meet with Anya and one other member of STAC this evening before this meeting for about a half an hour. And, kind of just, set the sort of schedule that we're going to try to attain. And some of the topics we talked about so far, the school start times, its impact at WA, the parking lot and the numbered spots, cell phones, work authenticity and AI in schools and how that's being, nurtured and, worked around. And we've got some other topics to discuss. We'd look to bring Stuco in, maybe some members from them. And obviously we will talk tonight about a potential fifth spot. So exciting start.
Sorry.
The only thing that I want to raise, Dr. Chu mentioned the fiscal issues. The MMA did publish a document that goes into some of the statewide challenges. If you haven't had a chance to look at it, it's probably a year or two late for us. It listed a lot of the things that I think Westford was really out in front on saying these are the challenges, but it just kind of validates those issues, and it is a good read. So.
Okay.
Sorry, yep, always gonna have a Robinson update. Robinson School Building Committee met today and was very exciting. We had our kickoff meeting with our owner's project manager, which is Vertex. It was great. They are so knowledgeable. They gave us a bit of a glimpse at a timeline. We're hoping, and everything is it's just so reassuring to have experts of the MSBA process, in the room now, because they just are pacing out all of the cadence with MSBA meetings, which we didn't really grasp before. So, they're not officially on board. We're hope to sign a contract with them the first week of November, and it's like a process that waits for the MSBA to review that. And then the immediate next step would be to write an RFS for a designer, and then that would take place kind of over December and January, and then we would be bringing a designer on board sometime during February, and that's really where we'll start. In the timeline, I think I saw the months that we, as a school committee and as a Robinson School Building Committee, will start grappling with like what's the right enrollment for this project and what's some of the configuration options we'll have. That will all start to happen once we get the designer on board. So,
And that was something that in today's meeting, if I would encourage all of you to kind of go back and watch it, it was recorded, it'll be
shared with
posted,
Kat, yep.
right?
Yep.
Because they talk about the difference between the votes that you'll need to take in terms of all those educational decisions about what choices we make in terms of the enrollment and the districting, and that would be something that would be your purview, versus the school building committee is dealing much more with the technical aspects of that project.
right.
And one of the things that I think is great about the company that we're talking with right now and that that worked with us today is that they have extensive experience with working with districts that are looking to redistrict or to consolidate in a similar way that we've expressed. And the way in which they communicate that information to the community, I think seems really helpful, right? Like looking at recognizing that any decisions that we make in the future for, say, the Robinson and or consolidation with Robinson and Abbott, or if we consider bringing Day, they acknowledge that it impacts all of the schools. And so they're tracking that. They're reminding us that what does it mean for Crisafulli? What does it mean for Nabnasset? What does it mean for, Miller? What does it mean for everybody? And that was just great to see the way in which they've organized that in the past and the way in which they communicate that. So I think that'll be helpful.
Do they bring, I know you're kind of saying there's a distinct thing that, the school building project versus the educational conversations and votes. Do they bring that expertise though with, if we're having that redistricting conversation, like that they can bring research data, recommendations to us?
They're going to help us collect the necessary data.
Okay.
And I feel like one of the things that it was a part of the proposal that that we responded favorably to was that they have they work closely with consultants who do redistricting work.
Okay.
GIS.
Yeah. So so the idea of I think collaborating with us to help guide us as to what questions should we be asking, what data should we be collecting.
But they wouldn't necessarily be creating the data for us.
I think they'll be working with us. I don't know. I don't know.
Gotcha, yeah.
I mean, I guess guide is the word I was looking for. Like they are very experienced in guiding districts through
the
this
process.
exact type of process. So
Perfect. Awesome.
it feels very exciting.
Yeah.
And then we already sort of talked about it, but Finance Subcommittee has been meeting and has another meeting this Friday to touch on, we're sort of hoping to wrap up our student activity accounts and having another discussion on the extracurricular fees and clubs stipends. So.
Awesome.
And I don't know if you mentioned the start times, but special town meeting and tri-board both start at 7 p.m. Next Monday is special town meeting at WA, and tri-board meets here at 7 p.m. on Tuesday.
And I think to jump on that, to kind of, encourage people on the tri-board side of it, I feel like special town meeting kind of almost, closes off FY26 in one sense, and then our tri-board meeting the next night is really kind of that kick-off for FY27, and it's really a look ahead. We're not being presented with budgets or anything, but it's really a chance for the three boards to come together and have that kind of conversation of what does the year ahead look like, what does the budget process look like. So I think this, there's so many meetings, but if we can encourage people at home, individuals in the community, that, if there's one meeting that you are going to watch and follow, it's, those tri-board meetings are probably, the best summary of, in terms of kind of budgets and priorities for the town and what's going ahead. So definitely just to encourage that's what happens in the tri-board meetings. And I'm going to also put out a thing for two things. CPAC is happening this Thursday, the 23rd at 7 p.m. here in Millennium, for our first business meeting of the year. And then also Monster Mash, the town Trunk or Treat is happening this Saturday, October 25th, from 1 to 4 p.m. at Rodenbush. School committee are going to be there with our ghosts theme. And looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a combination of town partners and families, and should be a fun afternoon. And so we'll be there.
I'd just add that at the board meeting, the CAT board meeting last Thursday, the 16th, CAT decided that they would also be at the Monster Mash, and that there will be someone in a cat costume, hopefully, at that event, which is the first ever Monster Mash we've ever had.
Yes, it's the first one.
Yeah,
So.
and they're also continuing to collaborate on the idea of working with Tingsboro on a media center, and they noted that podcasts are continuing to grow in popularity past the number of television shows they have.
It's the new
really
medium.
taking off.
Yeah,
So,
big time.
yeah.
That's cool. Okay, if we're done with updates, we'll move us right along to our first agenda for a topic, I should say, pilot our science program update.
So we'd like to introduce you to Dr. Chris Jeffcoat, who is new to us this year as our 6 through 12 STEM coordinator. And you all know Dr. Julie Kelly, who is our K to 5 STEM curriculum coordinator. So we've asked them to join us tonight just to give you a brief update as to what they're looking to do this year, knowing that as they're exploring the new science curriculum, they're going to be coming back in the spring with official recommendations to you. But we thought it would be helpful if they kind of came to you tonight and just gave you a couple minutes just to kind of talk through what they're going to be looking at and what they've looked at over the next couple months.
Yay. Such an exciting time here for science in Westford in the elementary and middle schools. Did you see all the kits when you came in? And lots of fun materials are starting to come in. So Chris and I have been working really hard on designing and developing a plan to explore the resources that are out there. So we're kind of living in similar worlds but separate, elementary, middle. So I'll kind of give you a brief overview of the plan for the elementary, and then Chris will follow up with what middle school is looking at. So both middle and elementary school, last year, we got together a group of about 10 teachers from the elementary and middle school, and we did a very large curriculum review, just reading, going on websites, calling districts that are using different programs, figuring out what does high quality curriculum instruction for science look like, and how would that look in Westford. And so we looked at many programs and just kind of narrowed it down. So in elementary school, we landed on 3 different curriculum products from 3 publishers, and they all have a lot in common. They're all NGSS aligned. They meet the expectations from.
Can you remind everybody what NGSS means?
Oh, yes, it's the national science standards and the Massachusetts science frameworks are developed from the national science standards, but publishers work in the national, because there are some tweaks, obviously. Massachusetts always tweaks something, very closely aligned to the national standards, but there are some, small adjustments. So all 3 of the programs that we looked at, they're aligned to the frameworks. They are meeting the definition of what does a high quality science instruction look like. They are getting the students' hands and minds on science, more doing science than hearing about science. So we want our students to be actively engaged in receiving the knowledge, creating some of the experiments themselves, thinking like scientists, not passive recipients of information. So all the programs meet all of those requirements. We settled on the last 3 because they offer a little bit more flexibility and give teachers more agency and choice making. They all can be adjusted a little bit with our very limited time that we do have for science. In the early elementary grades especially, we need to make sure that we're not buying or investing in a product where we can only actually engage with parts of it. So we wanted to make sure that we're looking at products that kind of offered a couple different tracks. So this year we have 14 elementary school teachers that will participate in a pilot. All 14 teachers are going to try 3 different programs. So we have, this is just kind of an overview, but we have about 4 units at each grade level. So we're going to do 1 unit with the program that we currently have, TCI, then 1 unit with each of the other resources that we're going to try, which I'll tell you a little bit about them in a minute. And that is a huge lift for any classroom teacher. I mean, it's a lot of work. So we spent a lot of time working together to try to figure out how do we compensate the teachers that come on board. This is going to be a lot of outside of school time, prep, learning. So the teachers who are participating will get recognized by getting, by meeting all the criteria and then getting 3 credits to University of Westford.
Awesome.
Which is so cool and so great that they've committed to this challenge, and we're all very excited. So, like I said, the 3 programs have so much in common that we're really going to be learning about the shift in science instruction through these resources. The nuances are more, it's not like the students and the teachers won't feel as much of like a change between units. Maybe it's a different workbook, but we'll really be able to look at and compare what are our needs of our students and which one of these resources is best for them. So we're excited. I think it's going to be a great, exciting, fun time. The 3 programs are, the first one is TWIG, and TWIG, the program was originally created in London, and it means aha. So I was wondering, why is it called TWIG? Okay, so one thing we all really liked when we looked at the resources about TWIG is throughout the K-5 experiences, students are introduced to STEM careers. So they can actually picture themselves in different careers. The next one is, it's called Experience Science. The publisher is Savis. We really liked a couple things, but they have virtual labs that are embedded, so they have some simulations. And then science, right now, science instruction is led with phenomena where everyone experiences one kind of leading, engaging video or experiment or something to bring a common question to right to us. Well, Experience Science offers options for the teacher about which phenomenon they're going to choose, where it could be about, a coal mine in Texas or one that's more about the ocean in Massachusetts. And so where a company offers us choice, we might pick one that's more relevant or more obscure based on the audience that we have right now, and year to year we could change, which it's nice to have flexibility. And then the third one that we're going to look at is Open SciEd. It is in the early stages of development for elementary school, but it's modeled after, you'll hear a lot about Open SciEd from Chris. It's modeled after the middle school model that's been in place for a while and is very successful. So that's going to be the 3rd program that we're going to pilot and try out. And yeah, that's, elementary science update from me. We think hopefully we'll have great recommendations coming from the team, and we'll bring their recommendations about what was feasible for the teacher, what was best for the student. We'll look at what work did the students produce, cost, and then we'll come back in the spring and present kind of our best idea of what we should do next year to all of you.
Right.
Middle school?
So obviously there was a curriculum review process that happened last year that I was late to the party on, but I've had spent really a lot of time in the middle schools. I've met with every grade level, talking to the teachers about the need to use high quality instructional material, some of their apprehensions about moving to a different curriculum, but also some of their excitement about it as well. So they had identified last year OpenSciEd as kind of the leading resource, which is from my past experience as well. At the middle school, that it's high quality structural material that's research based. The state has it's research validated, which not a lot of curriculum can say that they've actually measured impact of students, and it's national, and it's open source. So one of the nice things is that a lot of the teachers have already seen the units, because if you create a free account, you can log in and all the material is free and evolving. So when they get teacher feedback, they'll actually just go in and update and change things based on teacher feedback. So what it looked like when I piloted some of the units in the high school back in 2019 is extremely different, because they've taken feedback from people who use it, and it's continuously evolving in some ways. So we have some teachers who really want to commit to just trying a unit this year of OpenSciEd, and then there are some very zealous people who want to try 2 units. I've been working with vendors that have offered to provide us kits at no cost, so that we can do some of the pilots. So the cost I'm not going to call it a pilot. I'm going to call it a field test, because there's only one. But the cost would be around training, really, rather than the equipment, material, and the curriculum is free. One of the things I love about OpenSciEd is we have a lot of veteran teachers. As a matter of fact, we have really all veteran teachers at the science level. So, they've been doing things, in a way that's been working and effective with them. And the shift could take place over a longer stretch of time, because we don't have to invest all the money in a digital license. We could do a longer rollout where it's like a 2 or 3 year rollout, so that it's a little more seamless, and it transitions a little bit more over time. It also spreads out some of the training costs and some of the materials costs over 2 or 3 years, rather than doing it all at once. And it also opens us up for possibilities to partner, with different, groups, different organizations that do some of the training. NSTA offers some training. OpenSciEd offers some directly. There's vendors that offer it. So there's a lot of options, and part of it's going through and deciding what the best is. So instead of doing a pilot, we're going to field test either 1 or 2 units, depending on what the teachers will commit to, and that would probably start in January. And then those who want to do another one will probably do it around March. We'll gather data from their experience, and then from that, we would have kind of a recommended implementation plan in terms of, what can we commit to doing next year? What does that, entail, and how does that professional development work? Because in my past experience with OpenSciEd, the training is what's critical. They offer some of the best training that I've ever been part of in doing the training, and I feel as though that training is instrumental in teachers experiencing this slightly new pedagogy, and this pedagogy is really it's kind of funny when you see it, because it seems a little chaotic, because it seems student driven. Like the kids ask questions, they work in phenomenon, they take place in coming up with inquiry and investigation activities, but really there's a track in which they're going, but based on the way that the kids participate, you use these driving question boards, and it seems like the students are really driving it, even though there's predetermined standards that they're going to get through anyway. But it's highly engaging because of that. The students feel like, oh, we are answering my questions. This is what I came up with. And through the use of modeling, there's really a low floor, high ceiling entry point to students. So I find that it's very easy to differentiate. Students come where they are, and they engage, and there's no judgment. So at the beginning you say, okay, here's the phenomenon. Let's model what you think happened. And if the students thought that magical pixies were responsible for it, you say, "Oh, that's an idea. That's really interesting." And then you celebrate them where they are, and over the course of the unit, they continue to refine and build to a consensus model in the class based on their participation in the experience. The last thing I'll say is that we found out when we went to a DESE meeting that they are proceeding forward with changing the 5th and 8th grade MCAS tests. to be completely simulation-based.
Good point, I skipped that.
And
I skipped that note.
one of the driving forces around doing that was that the state has been pushing using modeling of phenomenon and inquiry, and there was a lot of criticism that if you want us to do a different type of pedagogy and you're going to assess them in the traditional method, that doesn't seem to jive. And the state listened, and they have been, piloting and practicing this new way of assessing students. So the multiple choice kind of discrete test items will go away in 2028, and
27.
it'll be the last year, yeah. So
Okay.
it'll be fully implemented in 2028, and they will, and it'll be much more about the scientific engineering practices. So it's more about students interacting and doing science rather than just remembering rote facts. So this shift to Open Science, over time will help prepare our students for that different type of an assessment as they engage in the inquiry process and practice that in class. So I'm excited. I'm excited to work with a group of veteran teachers and to kind of see, some of them have some concern about things like autonomy, and which is natural. And I'm like, well, let's see the unit, and we can always decide strategically where we can implement some of the things we know work with the students in Westford, and so we can bring our own talents and personalities and interests a little bit once we kind of get the Open Science philosophy down and see where the two kind of coexist together. So I think we are both available for questions if you have any questions.
Awesome. Well, thank you both for that. Lots of information, and also to officially welcome you, Dr. Jeffco, to Westford. Hopefully we haven't scared you off too much in these first couple of weeks back. And I'll just check in with the school committee. Any questions?
So just a comment, I heard and appreciate the fact that you would consider the budget impact. But I would also challenge to not necessarily consider that. If it may be that the best package for our students may be the most expensive one, and that is something that Dr. Chu will have to consider, and then we would need to weigh in, or the school committee at that time would have to weigh in. But I also don't want our teachers to think that they have to accept a substandard just because of price. So,
Thank you.
I have a question about the virtual labs that you mentioned. I think those can be really wonderful when you can't do something in person. But I'm curious for both of you, your philosophy on balancing the emphasis on the virtual labs versus physical manipulatives for students.
Absolutely. I mean, the state of Massachusetts is really doing a beautiful job about supporting this shift and, like Chris said, balancing that. Even we want to change the teaching and learning, so let's change the assessment. And one of the number one things that comes up at every single meeting from the state is do not replace hands-on learning with virtual simulations. The virtual simulations come naturally to the students when they've experienced science with their hands and their eyes and their senses, and then applying it to a digital context. But there are so many cases where some situations we can't bring the students to this scenario. And so the balance is really, really important and exciting. And I think we all want hands-on first, but the simulations really connect the real world. And real scientists use simulations. Real scientists don't only use their hands to manipulate things and measure and experiment. So the simulations offer the students, as early as first graders, whether it's with direct modeling from the teacher to present a simulation. And what happens when we adjust the temperature in this, and then a graph is created to show how the data shifts and change. Sometimes we do hands-on, and what we wanted the output to become, the actual data that we collected, somehow something goes awry, and the learning that we wanted is actually, oh, no, let's use my data. So it's just what happens in the classroom. And so the balance is actually really cool combination that's more real than, but it would not replace hands-on.
Yeah, I would say that we've reached a saturation point of technology where for this generation coming up, when I was a kid, it was novelty to see a video, to break out the laser disc, and you're like, wow, look at this amazing PBS video. For our kids, video is not novelty, and what actually novelty is real life. So the novelty of asking a question and planning an experiment and seeing how variables are affected is what I love about Open SciEd, because yes, they have simulations, and part of that was driven by teachers and changes to assessment. It's also, there's different ways, obviously, to demonstrate your understanding other than, by the traditional means of, multiple choice tests, true false tests, in open response tests. The simulations allow a teacher to give, a lab as a way of collecting where students are in their learning. One of the things that I think is, I'm going to say a couple times, but I think one of my favorite parts about Open SciEd is they have both performance and transfer tasks. And the transfer tasks are all about taking what you're learning in the moment and applying it to life. I think that that's one thing that's often missing is like you learn something, it's cool and it's neat, but does it come home with you? And I think the transfer tasks help ensure the fact that that happens. So I think that it's the whole combination of the synthesis of using technology as a tool, but that science is not as much of a noun as a verb, and the students need to be doing science. And I think that having high quality instructional material that's well prepared and well thought out and integrated is what it allows the teachers the space to do that and do those things, and also to coordinate so that every student is getting a similar experience, no matter what school they have and no matter what teacher they have, that all the kids are kind of enjoying that learning as a community.
And I think, Dr. Jeffcoat, you also mentioned, in your Pixies example, you also kind of allude to that accessibility for students and, meeting them where they are and having putting some guardrails up on their learning, right? Like we're not going to give them total control of just to run around the classroom, but they are taking over the learning. Right. And now we're pushing from the memorization. We're going now to analysis and evaluation and creation and all those high-level Bloom's taxonomy that we all learned about is happening. And so for kids to have all those experiences at any level, from the students on IEPs to the students that are in AP courses eventually, all in one house, I think that's terrific. I also appreciate teacher agency, because I think, what you guys know, with any new rollout of a training or a new initiative, that, there's going to be pushback. And if the feelings don't go the way they don't, there's not going to be that buy-in. So incorporating agency and autonomy for teachers, and getting them up to speed slowly is so important. So I appreciate that you guys have really thought this out and incorporated that feedback in this process. So
Thank you.
Can I ask, what kind of brought us to this point? What's the background of kind of feeling the need to review our science curriculum and at this point in time, and how the conversation?
Well, we're always looking at our curriculum.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's kind of the bottom line, is doing a temperature check on, is the curriculum meeting the needs of our students? Are we making the progress that we want to be meeting? And when we do, if we look at science, MCAS, our students do well. And so then we look at the next thing, what is the research? What is the best practices that are out there? We go to Ed Reports or Curate, and we say, how does the curriculum we currently have match up to the expectations by these, bigger reviews? And so, honestly, TCI did not align with Green for Curate or Ed Reports. I think, and for middle school, they didn't review the elementary school, because that's kind of how the process goes. If they review and you get like a red or a yellow, well, we're not going to keep digging deeper. The companies don't do that. So that kind of made us question and think about how does TCI compare to what else is out there. And then in combination with the shift that is at all of our, every time we go to a department meeting and it's for science, and it's all about not just the new performance-based MCAS, but what are the instructional shifts that are happening. And the Department of Ed is even putting out classroom tasks free that we can use to say, is our student thinking aligning with this style of thinking, and go through that process. And so when we did that last year with our team, one of the curriculums that we kept in our review process was TCI, just to see what else. We don't want to just shift just because we've kind of gotten used to this. And so then we ruled that one out, one, because the information that Curie had provided us, but also a lot of the components live in TCI. Like if you go on their website, it will say phenomenon-based instruction. It will say student inquiry. It will say NGSS, standards, and that they do use the science practices of modeling and questioning. When you're teaching it and when you're observing it in the classroom, you see those components exist there, but they're not to the depth of when you watch another model instructional classroom video and you see the way the students, the questions that they ask and the information that comes forward. You're like, that's what I want my kids to be doing. But they're not doing that right now, so how do we get them there? And so that was kind of a good time to start thinking about raising the bar a little bit for our kiddos and get them kind of to this next level of involvement.
Yeah, I think instructional practices, I think in science, has just rapidly shifted. NGSS was based on a lot of research that then kind of came out more in the mainstream, and then curriculum, companies responded to that in various ways. But I think that kind of like the science of reading, every company knows the buzzwords to use. But one thing that I noticed in a lot of curriculum that I've been part of reviewing in the past is the words are used, but do they live throughout the units? So they might say there's a phenomenon and it's a video and the kids see it at the beginning of the unit and that's it. But to have a storyboard where there's a theme and a narrative where kids are learning and coming back to this throughout and inquiry is living throughout the unit is something that not every manufacturer's done well, and that's why a lot of them came up with something in 2018, 2020, and now they're coming up with something again completely different because they're responding to that need for the shifts. So I think as HQIM has become a bigger push from the state and making sure that all students have access to HQIM, then they had to respond to, well, what is that and how do you know it's highly rated? So whether it be Ed Reports or Curate, there's a lot of information, and I think we just want to make sure that the students at Westford have the best curriculum material, and our teachers deserve the best curriculum material to serve our kids.
Awesome. And I'm assuming these are all UDL friendly.
Oh, totally.
100%.
Figured as much.
Yeah.
But
It was on my notes. I actually was talking too long. I skipped that.
awesome. Any other questions, queries, comments?
I just have two quick ones. I think they're just like quick, easy questions. One was, you mentioned how many elementary teachers are involved. Do you have a number for how many middle school staff are interested?
So I put out for 2 units originally, and I had 3 of the 12 was committed to doing 3, and I've since gone back and I'm going to put out officially again, because I do have some that just that do the 2 units. Some just want to do 1. So that's great if they want to do the 1. But I just have to put back out to see how many officially want to do the 1. So 3, even though it sounds like 3, is still 25% of the 12.
Sure.
So I'm hoping
Right,
that
it's
it'll
a
be.
smaller-
I'm hoping it'll be
Smaller
6.
group.
I'm hoping that we can have at least half the teachers experience it.
Great. And my next question was, you had mentioned kits, so I was just wondering, when we talk about like the ELA purchase, that was like kind of this one-time thing. Are the kits like a consumable that would be like every year?
I mean, science kits are like a whole,
Oh,
you know, master's class in science kits, but
Science, like the art department, we normally have to
Right.
have.
Oh, okay.
regular- it
Ongoing
has a different
resources, that would
budget
make sense,
Because
yeah.
there's things that have to be,
Replace
it's
it.
yes and
Yeah.
no. Like
Okay.
some
Yeah.
things could last long,
Got it.
Yeah.
and then some is tinfoil. you
Okay,
know,
Yeah.
so it's not black and white.
right.
There is,
Got
and I
it.
can tell you for Open Science that there's basically two levels of kits. There's the durables, and those are really just a one-time purchase. You purchase, and they have the things that you don't use up, and then they have there's really only two manufacturers that make the kits, but then they have a consumables kit that you can keep reordering that's a lot less expensive. What we found is that you don't necessarily need to order as many kits every year for the refills, and some of those things are, that are cheaper if you order them one-off. So different companies have different things. I've been working with ECA, and one of the benefits of ECA, not only that they're going to give us the kits to do the field tests, but everything comes teacher-friendly. So everything comes box packaged. There's a QR code. They can scan the QR code. It comes up and tells them exactly what's responsible for setup. Whereas the other manufacturer sends the kits to like central office, and then you have to go through and piecemeal and dole it out, which is
I'm telling you, it's a whole,
yeah, it's
all hands on deck when these things start coming in.
but yeah, there's a lot of
Wow, okay.
there's benefits and costs to either way of doing it.
These materials that are out here, which through the pilots, sometimes we're buying the kit, sometimes we're buying the PD, but the different companies, we're working it out, so it's pretty much, you're paying for different things, but it's costing a fraction of, this is about three classrooms for 12 teachers for one unit. And there would be 4 units. And so, I mean,
So we have storage built into the new school
Need a
design?
pod.
like I said, there's a lot, that's a good question, Valerie.
she was like, it'll be quick.
Yeah, yeah.
Sorry.
We'll
You
circle
learned
back.
something tonight.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank
Well,
you.
thank you both so much. Best of luck with the piloting, field testing, and we look forward to seeing you guys in the
Let you
spring.
know how it goes.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, good night,
Thank
thanks
you.
guys.
Good night. Okay, and switching up to the next item on our agenda, the school start time. Are following up on our conversation from our last meeting. I don't know, Dr. Chu, do you want to kind of give us a synopsis again? If
Yeah,
anything
so,
has changed?
So during our last meeting, I brought you the data that we'd been looking at and shared with you what our recommendations were to adjust the 3 to 5 schools to 8:55 to 3 o'clock, and then just to move the Nabnasset and the Miller School up to 9:05 to 3:10 to sort of shorten that window between the schools. That's still our recommendation. I'm not sure if you have received any feedback in terms of that recommendation. The idea would be that if that was something that you supported this evening, we would then begin communicating that to families and for a implementation of November 3rd, which would give us a couple weeks to communicate that information. That's, daylight savings, fall back weekend, so people are already going to be kind of thinking about how their clocks are adjusting. I think we can kind of put all that together. We did talk about the possibility of also separating the AB and NABIT routes. I will say, while I think from the school building perspective, that would be the recommendation, because that would be better for them to have fewer buses there. I do think, personally, I had more feedback from families that they didn't want us to separate them, because it's actually easier for families to have the one bus stop and the one time than to make it 2 different spots with now a shorter period of time between them, right? So, I mean, the idea being that if you were going to make one adjustment, make the adjustment of changing the times. So that's where we're at. I don't know if you have any other questions. We didn't collect additional data since the last round because it had been pretty consistent. So I don't have new data for you.
I did have one question about the data. On the Blanchard morning bus arrival times, on 10-3 it says there were only 9 buses. And under that was a note of 19 to 22 combo. Is that something like that was
That was a,
one-off?
yes, that was something that had happened where they needed to combine the bus routes
I know.
because there was something with the, I don't remember exactly what the issue was with the bus, but
Okay.
that was just a,
That wouldn't be in an ideal situation of,
No.
okay.
nope.
Okay. And then, I guess the other follow-up is that, is the expectation that by making the adjustment that is proposed, that we would alleviate some of the issues that we've been getting reports on from residents at NAB surrounding the buses actually overflowing to the street? I think that's in the morning, correct?
So, what ends up happening, it ends up happening at both dismissal, but more so even in the morning, is that the buses are all getting there and waiting. So there's physically not enough room for all of the buses to be at NAB at one time. By bringing the window together, what we anticipate is that, similar to what we said from the very beginning when we were trying to keep the buses from dropping off at WA as early, then, and Principal Toomey said, listen, it's just easier if they can drop off when they get there because we need to keep them moving. It's the same situation with NAB, that if we can reduce that amount of time, then as they're coming in, they can be unloading, and then in the afternoon, they can be picking up and not sitting and waiting to pick up,
Right, okay.
but actually keeping that so that it will still, it'll change that amount of time, so there'd still be some students at Abbott and some at NAB in some of the buses, you know what I'm saying?
Just related to that too, I was wondering if we have an update on the driveway project? Because that, like, widening of that back, I wondered if that might help alleviate some of the traffic too.
So, the update that Jeff Goodwin shared with us was, I think they're still kind of in the process and working with the engineers to figure out exactly what that, to finalize what that was.
Okay.
It needed to, it was dependent on the playground.
Right.
And the gates and to make sure, but I'll double check with Jeff. Ultimately, yes, we're hoping that by improving that area behind the building, that it would alleviate traffic. There's been discussions about, could it change the traffic pattern entirely, not just alleviate it and make it easier, but could we actually rethink it? And that hasn't been finalized, and
Sure.
that wouldn't be happening.
No, yeah.
That wouldn't be happening soon.
Okay. So, based on your last memo, there was two things. There was one was the vote on,
Yeah, so if we change the school times, right, so if we
Yeah.
change the 3 to 5 times or the K to 2 times, that would require a vote for you because you established those times in the first place, right? If we were to make any adjustments, we're still, there are still ways in which we can have some of the 6 through 12 buses pick up later in the morning, right? To kind of make that's something that we're still able to do. I feel like while some, I believe, have already started trying to explore some of that process, and I know there was a very unique situation at Stony Brook where there was also needed to combine a couple of, they needed to combine a couple of stops because there was a bus issue, so they did that for a couple of days. So the bus company did not communicate that, I think, appropriately to Principal Hammer. So once Principal Hammer got that information, she did communicate to all the families, okay, listen, we're going to adjust these times for these specific stops for the next couple of days. I would rather all of those adjustments take place at the same time. So if you are supportive of this and this is the direction we want to go in, then my recommendation will be is we working with Dee, we work with the principals, we communicate all of this information, we communicate the changes in the actual start times. I'll do that even with a robocall. But as far as the bus stops are concerned in the morning, we'll really reiterate what those new times in the morning should look like.
Yeah.
So that families can kind of re-gauge that.
I'm almost wondering if that's, like, the way people are used to absorbing that information is that route you look at your route and it's got a start time at the end and then you add a couple minutes. So are we thinking of like re-pushing
Yes.
those documents
That's what
out?
I think
Okay.
would happen, is that those start times, the way in which we did it originally, we would say, the new start time for this route is here. Because I think you're right, they do know, they've kind of figured out how many minutes it takes to get to their spot from that start time.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
It may be helpful just to, sometimes I feel like when you push out new material with new information, I'm like, what was it before again? So it might be nice just to have some
Straight
notation.
This is what it
Yeah, so
was,
like
this
I
is what we're gonna do.
Yeah, so it looks
Yep.
like that we bumped this by 6 minutes,
Track
okay? In my
changes.
head, that
Yep.
should be 6 minutes from the time we were getting on the bus, because it happens to me all the time.
Yeah.
I look
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I'm like, I can't find the old document,
yeah,
I can't
yeah,
figure
yeah.
out. So I
Well,
think
it's
just-
why we.
You want the
it's why we
redlined
s-
version.
Yeah,
It's
I
why
want
we
the
spend all
redlined
the time
version.
making sure people understand what a delay means, right? And why we got rid of the 90-minute delays that used to exist a long time ago, because everyone would be like, oh, wait, what is 90?
What time
90
is that?
minutes is like just 2 hour. It's a 2-hour delay.
Yeah.
Easier on the math.
Right.
Okay. So we need to look at voting on the times, and then the other side of it was just you were making the recommendation on the bus side. We're not voting on that, on the middle school buses.
On the change, on pushing back those start times, I do think if you wanted, like I said, I think anecdotally, I've kind of heard people talking about not wanting to separate the elementary buses at this time, because of the impact that would have on families, but that also wouldn't necessarily, I think, be a vote piece, but that's something, if that's something you want us to explore further, we can, but my recommendation is that we don't do it.
I think that would
Yeah.
be a seismic shift as opposed to just
Yeah.
a minor shift here.
I think it's in the best interest to make a minor shift and see if that alleviates some of the
Yeah.
problems. You know, and I think we all know on the table with all this Robinson in the building is a possible reconfiguration of schools, which would put all the kids on the buses at the same time, because we might reconfigure the way the schools are.
Yeah.
So I think flip-flopping them back and forth,
Yeah.
unless we were like in a real jam, I think making a small adjustment and seeing if that starts
Yeah.
clocking 10, 15 minutes off routes is the best move as well.
And then the other question I would have is, I think we had talked about the idea of asking Dee to just relook at it and whether or not some of these longer routes could be broken up differently, especially given the fact that we're currently utilizing one less bus than
Yeah.
essentially what we're entitled to, not paying for that bus, right? So, but
But budgeted for.
right, but it is budgeted for, so it would not be an additional strain on the budget per se. Have any of those conversations happened, or, you know?
Well, I think we're still first just making sure everybody's prepared and ready for a shift in the times.
Yep, okay.
Based on the fact that a couple of these combinations of routes have taken place in an emergency situation for a couple of days because D needed to do that,
Yep.
I am very confident that we can say, hey, we need some more flexibility to see if there's other adjustments that can be made.
Okay.
You know, if they're able to make,
Yeah.
if they're able to make quick changes like that for a couple of days, then I think if we need to adjust other routes, they should be able to explore that.
The only request I would put in then is that if we vote on this tonight, it changes from November 3rd. That November 17th is our next school committee meeting, that we could have like a week of track data
Yep, okay.
following on from, similar
3rd
to
to
what
the
we've
17th,
had.
yeah.
Yeah, similar to of what we had,
What's
so
the
that we
impact?
can look at, we can essentially do an apples to apples comparison.
idea.
Because I think, again, you know, it'll talk to some of those kind of, was it really the wait time that's triggering it, or do we need a bit more tweaking, like we've been talking about? And it just gives us more data to kind of keep the conversation going. So
Okay.
if we can do that, and again, I suppose both principals and
Yep.
D staff, that would be amazing. I know it's a lot of ask, but I think while we're doing, you know, quite a big change, it's beneficial
Okay.
to have those conversations rooted in data. So, is there, there you go, Shayna.
Motion to approve the change in start times as proposed by Dr. Chu.
Second?
Okay, all in favor? There we go.
Okay, thank you. So we will start communicating that
Yeah.
tomorrow.
Mhm.
And like I said, I'll schedule even a robocall. We'll try to do that strategically so that it kind of lines up, but I'll have the principals start communicating it.
Perhaps we need a poster size at town meeting,
Oh, that's a great idea.
just as,
In at the tri-board meeting.
yeah.
So it's
Yeah,
two
yeah,
meetings,
yeah.
both at 7:00.
Yeah.
It may not have the attendance of the population that we want to touch, but even if we educate 5 people there, those 5 people will talk to
Tell
their.
your friends.
I will say too,
Yeah.
I appreciate that a lot of the principals at the buildings have been doing sandwich boards.
Mhm.
So like reminders for half days, stuff like that have been through that way. At least at the 2 schools I frequent, so I just think that's also,
Okay.
any any tools that they
Any
have at their
communication,
disposal.
Right?
Yeah.
Full
Any
court
tools
press,
possible.
would that be
Yeah.
the sport
Yeah.
analogy?
Shall we?
No stone unturned.
I think we
Get something into WestfordCAT.
We'll just tattoo it right on your forehead.
Yeah, right?
Smoke signals, anything, yeah.
New start times.
It's not changing that.
Updated.
Awesome. Okay, moving on to our next item is our stack policy discussion. And I think it's great you had your stack meeting as well tonight. So again, to bring us all up to speed, typically our stack, our student advisory committee, is made up of 5 members. The state, it's a legal requirement that we have this student advisory committee, and on the state level, they say it just has to be 5 members. And our policy, it went a step further and said it needed to be at least 1 member from every grade level, and then 2 seniors. And we clearly weren't cool enough for this year's freshmen, and so we currently have a seat open on our student advisory committee. And so the question really tonight, the discussion is, is it something that we want to look at finding a freshman who will fill that role, or would we like to suspend our policy, which is something we can do, and potentially appoint, she's a current junior, I believe, who also ran for stack but wasn't successful. Current sophomore.
Yep.
And that we could potentially appoint her to fill that 5th seat for the year. And so I don't know, Anya and Bill and Larry, you guys had a conversation tonight in your stack meeting, if you wanted to kind of share with us how that went.
I think we're aware that Dean Murphy has tried to recruit a freshman without luck, but that we have the okay from that sophomore. They are
Awesome.
ready to step in
Okay.
and would be willing.
And
Yeah.
stack, you guys are happy to
Yes.
to go with that?
Is there any reasoning to update the policy itself to say, ideally it is 1 from each class, but if that is not available,
I think that's inevitably going to happen.
We'll get there.
Is the goal of having, I'm wondering if the goal of having someone from each class could also be achieved by saying that there needs to be somebody focused on each class, but they maybe
Oh.
don't need to be from that class. I mean, I think ideally they would be, but if it's
Yeah.
not possible, maybe
Right.
this next
Someone could be like,
person
I'm supposed to be
Representing
interests of the
meeting
ninth
with,
grader.
yeah, even
Yeah.
though I'm not a ninth grader.
Freshman, yeah.
That's
Even if
good.
it's the freshman dean, or, yeah. Or connecting in with the students. That's what I
Yeah.
mean, yeah.
You just mean
Yeah.
a member. You mean like one of the other
I mean,
members.
if
Like
we
for
have
that,
Anya,
Anya
yeah.
could actually be like, oh, I'm actually going
That's
to.
the freshman rep.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm gonna focus on representing their interests.
Right,
Yeah.
I mean, I assume that's why we want to span the 4 grades, so.
I would assume so, yeah.
That's a good point.
Yeah. My only concern with suspending the policy at this point, I'm more than happy that there are other people that are interested. I am concerned about that representation, and then that just carries forward. I think there's something to be said about a freshman being in that role as a freshman and then being able to, like, classmates either saying they're doing a great job or, oh, I see what they are doing, and now I'm interested as a sophomore, junior, senior. But if we don't have a freshman, will we have 1 or 2 seniors in 3 years from that class? Right? So that's kind of where my mind is, the struggle with not getting a freshman, and it sounds like there's been efforts to get someone to fill that role. But yeah, so that's.
So what would would you err on the side of they should just appoint somebody and
Well, I mean, you
hope for
can't.
the best? Because I'm not sure how to overcome your.
Right, yeah.
They also have to be elected every year, so it's not like it's a long-term
Right.
appointment.
Right, no, and I want to make sure that there is that recruitment effort going on as well, so.
And I think there would be avenues. I think, Anya, we talked about tonight, the student council is a much larger grouping of students across the school, and maybe there could be some work there, made to, try to recruit from within. I think we also talked too about, like, maybe there's presentations made in 8th grade
It'd be
at the
great,
middle
yeah.
schools about
I
this
think
work.
that would be
I
awesome.
think a lot more like branching out and like before middle schoolers get to high school, expanding further on what our student governments each one does. And also I know that this year with like the freshman election presentations, there wasn't a lot of like information given out. I think a lot of freshmen didn't even know the meeting was happening because I think there was some announcement issues going on, like the TVs weren't like working and stuff. So it wasn't like properly, like the information wasn't properly given out for any potential people who could have.
And I do think there's a harder time to engage when you just come to you're in a new school, you're in a new environment, you're overwhelmed,
Yeah.
you're trying to get the lay of the land.
You want to
so-
hook them in 8th grade when they're
And you're-
excited.
You're only 50, you only know 50% of the kids.
Yeah.
I'm wondering too, like, Bill, you mentioned Stuco, but I feel like it's much more closely aligned with Student Senate.
I was
So
gonna
if there are
say that too,
grade
yeah.
9 members organically in Student Senate, maybe that's where we make sure we tie in the representation and the conversations, and that should happen anyway with the new sort of setup this year.
Yeah.
So I'm comfortable sort of playing it by ear this year, putting the policy maybe in the policy subcommittee's radar and having those conversations this year. It's kind of like a good sort of test case to
Good
like,
witness,
to like break it and see what comes out of it.
It also might be interesting to think in terms of how this group interacts with all of the other clubs
Yeah.
in sports, because we don't have a problem with freshmen getting involved,
Yeah.
right? So freshmen they're a part of clubs, they're trying out for things, but they might not necessarily know this student government aspect. And so going to them on that level and understanding that, that there's this additional thing that you could be on this team or in this show or in this club, but you could also be representing your class in this way.
Right.
That might be the way to, and also just make sure that there's a clear representation of this group
And
when
that-
they are going to meet the 8th graders.
This also had us on a little sidebar about like having a good infographic for WA
Yeah.
about its student government, all the different sections,
Yeah.
and here's what they constitute.
There is something there, but I think like,
I mean,
I
Anya,
think
yeah,
it needs like
it's vague.
updating.
You know what might, but we should talk with the 8th grade civics teachers, because the civics program in Westford is phenomenal. The 8th grade teachers do an amazing job getting the kids really actively involved in understanding what their options are. And if they knew that this was like a real life opportunity for them immediately right around the corner,
Yep.
they might get pretty excited about that.
well, so much of their civics action projects that they do totally tie in. I can't remember how many conversations I've had with the 8th graders going, when you get up to high school next year, you need to look at Student Senate and STAC.
That might be a
because
thing
it
for you to
is,
go
yeah.
and visit the 8th grade civics classes in the spring.
Yeah.
You know, to
I agree.
bring the whole group.
I remember like a couple of years earlier, we went, like STAC representatives and some Student Senate representatives went to the 8th graders to do a presentation. And I remember that the following, like in the spring, we had a lot more interest in STAC because and a lot of them were kids we had spoken to because
Yep.
they were more aware of who we are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And at least at Blanchard, they have a student council club too, so that would be a good
Connecting
target,
in
because
with
those are
them.
kids that are already
Yeah.
getting involved. I'm assuming Stony has one too, but.
Yeah.
Add that to the to-do list.
So-
Bill and Anya?
Policy 7307,
Go on.
our suspension of policies, just in case anyone's not reading this every night to their children. The operation of any section of school committee policies not established by law or contract may be temporarily suspended by a 2/3 vote of school committee members present at a regular or special meeting. This action must be reviewed at the next regularly scheduled meeting and will be so noted on the agenda for that meeting. So with that in mind, I would motion a la, like as per P 7307, I'll make a motion to suspend policy 5406 to allow this candidate, student's name,
Shreya Carmarker.
Shreya Carmarka, Carmarker, to the Student Advisory Committee
For this school year
for
of
this school year,
25-26.
as amended.
Second.
Can I clarify before we
Yeah.
vote? So we are not including any stipulation for any focus for this position. It's just a fifth member. Okay.
Yeah. But then we can give guidance to Bill and Anya and
Yep.
Laurie about the conversation we've had tonight about representing all levels for the year. And connecting in like that with the Student Senate. Gracie's also being the Student Senate chair as well, so. Yeah. Yeah.
And it's a great moment to remind everybody that the third seat of the student, of we have two standing members of the school committee that's meet with STAC, but there's a third slot there to rotate through the rest of us.
Yes.
So it can certainly be something when it's your turn to meet with them to check in on.
So with that motion and a second, we will take a vote.
I'm still, I don't understand I don't have the full knowledge of the recruitment process that's gone on. I'm just wondering if there's room for just one more recruitment push. I'm worried about the representation, and the long-term impacts of that lack of representation from that specific grade, and peers. So, I'm just wondering if we could have one more push and then,
I know Betsy Murphy, Dean Murphy did have conversations and reached out to a number of freshmen, but we don't have a name. And I will say, this is the first time since, when did we bring this in 4 years?
yeah.
I think that this has happened. Yeah, this is our.
I was the
You were the
Yeah.
first. You were the freshman, Anya. So yeah, this is a first. So we've not normally had.
You can also vote no.
Yeah.
I know.
If you're not in agreement too.
So are we happy to take the vote?
Madam Police, yeah.
So with the motion and the second, we will say all in favor. So that's a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And against, 5 to 2. And that passes because it was a 2/3
2/3,
majority.
Yep.
Is that the correct math?
Yep. 4.667, yep, it passes.
Okay.
And then we'll put it on next.
The next agenda, yeah, just to review. Isn't that what the policy said? Yeah. Okay, and moving on to our last item for the evening, it's not actually a second reading of the middle school pathways policy, it's a discussion. The second reading is our third meeting. Sorry, now that I see the words there, because last meeting was our first reading and we waived the first reading. Because we're expected to vote on this at our next school committee meeting. So
Yeah.
our policy is 3 meetings. The first happens at the first meeting, it's a discussion at the second meeting, and then it's the second vote at the third meeting. So apologies for that, it just didn't register with me. I can say, as you can see in your packets, there has been no changes, updates to the current draft. We have had no public feedback through our comments, and I know I haven't had, you know, a ton of parents racing to. Any members have any feedback, thoughts? Because the policy subcommittee will meet next week to make any final changes and provide a final draft for vote at our next meeting. No?
Just reiterate that this was put together in conjunction with Neshoba Tech, and it puts into words the current practice, so it's nothing changing really,
Yeah.
except
It's a
we have
formality.
another policy to maintain.
I will say, as a middle school parent, I've seen a ton of stuff coming out to me, even though I only was 7th grader, like coming through the school notifications about Neshoba and the sessions and the field trips and the visitors. So like, I know we need a policy, but I do think that our principal, at least at Blanchard, is doing a great job, like communicating that there are conversations happening and that
Yeah.
there are ways to get involved. So kudos.
I don't
to
even
him
have
for
an
that.
8th grader, and I got a postcard in the mail
Oh, I
for
thought
the
it was
open
special.
house. I know. So, yeah, it's definitely out there, Shayna, you're right. Okay.
I will just say quickly, when we were discussing this, I was very happy to hear Dr. Pigeon, who's the superintendent in Neshoba, talk about the fact that we are a model for how this can work, right? Because and it is something, and I will say, as a middle school principal years ago, I struggled with whether every single student should be going on a field trip to see the school if they have no intention or not. Because I've been in other districts where you would only go on the field trip if you were interested in attending the school. And I feel like that exposure is valuable, and it is very helpful. So I just think I just wanted to share that with all of you, that I think we have been doing a good job in sort of sharing that information so that our students know what their options are.
I think we hear more and more students going. I mean, Neshoba has a wait list all the time. So yeah, it's definitely, I think we're on the right track. And with that, a
Motion to
motion,
adjourn tonight's meeting.
Second?
all in favor?